Tony Weaver Jr., who is
Hello,
teaching
hello.
us all that it's okay to be weird. Tony, welcome to Let's Talk.
Hello, how are you today?
I am fantastic. You just made my day.
Well, that feels good to hear. That feels
Yeah.
good to hear. I hope I can do it again. We're at the beginning. I hope I got some good positive stuff to say.
Oh, you do. You do. So, how does it help for, first of all, you wrote the book. So let's talk about, yourself and how you decided to write this book and I mean, really, what makes you weird? I like your outfit, but what makes you weird?
Thank you. Well, I think that when I was younger, I didn't know that I was weird. I had to be told I was weird. When I was a kid, I thought that I was cool because to me, the coolest thing in the world was a holographic Charizard Pokemon card. And I had one of those, but I had to be informed by the people around me that the stuff that made me happy was stuff that other people considered kind of weird, kind of different. And when I was younger, I thought that was a bad thing and tried my hardest to hide all the things that make me different and unique. But as I got older, what I realized was the things that make me weird are the things that bring me power, are the things that allow me to impact my community in specific ways that only I can. So now as an author and a storyteller, I get the privilege to tell stories that help other kids embrace their weirdness.
And I mean, I don't, okay, so there were games there, right now I might, look at that cool cap that you have on, the bright, my favorite color glasses, but what makes a person weird? Or is it just that someone labeled you that? Or when did you accept the fact that maybe I am weird?
Well, I think that weird is a label that gets put on people. When you behave in a way that they don't understand, when you behave in a way that's different to them, when you behave in a way that's different than what their expectations of you are. In my book, Weirdo, I call it the Nerdy Kids Instruction Manual for Self-Love and Self-Confidence. And it's a graphic novel memoir that explores my experiences as a young person, navigating this feeling of weirdness, trying to find answers to some of the questions that you just brought up. What is weird? How do you determine what makes a person weird and what makes a person normal? And ultimately, one of the conclusions that I come to is I get to decide what the norm for myself is. And if that's considered weird by everybody else, then that's their problem, not mine.
How, we talk a lot about bullying, Tony, and some of, like you said, when you were labeled weird. I really want to know, one, how did you feel then? But also, how did that transition take place? I mean, how old were you when you said, it's cool, I'm cool, I accept myself for who I am? How old were you and how long might it take a young person to get to that point?
So bullying for me was something very difficult to experience, especially in the advent of the internet, where we have to deal with bullying that's happening with people in front of you, but you can fall asleep on the bus and have a bad picture of you taken. And by the time you get to school, thousands of kids that you have never met have bad things to say about you. And very often when we talk to kids about bullying, we don't acknowledge the difficult reality that kids have to deal with today in terms of being ridiculed and the way that the internet and AI presents different opportunities for that to happen. But regardless of the ways that people are dealing with negative behavior, the kind of negative things that people may have to say about them, I think the way out of it in every case is self-love and self-confidence. You got to learn to love what you see when you look in the mirror. It's something that my parents always tried to distill in me. And when I was in middle school dealing with bullying at my worst, they put me in therapy and allowed me to talk to somebody about my problems and worked really hard to make sure that I learned how to love myself. What I say about Weirdo is that it's a helping hand for every person on their journey to self-love and self-actualization. And for some people, they're going to do that as kids, and it's going to be something that comes naturally to them. For other people, it's going to go into their adulthood. Some people spend their entire lives trying to figure out how to love who they are. And I think that no matter how long it takes, it's a journey worth taking because it really allows us to live life to the fullest.
Wow, that was powerful. That was very powerful and instructive, like you said, for parents of children who are going through bullying and trying to find ways to accept themselves. And you talked about your parents, but again, what do you think parents and teachers can do to help to foster that type of self-love you're talking about?
I think the greatest thing that an adult that cares about a child can do in order to help them with bullying or anything that might challenge their self-love is to make sure that adult needs to make sure they establish themselves as a safe place before the bullying starts. before the negative behavior begins. If a child knows that they can come to you about anything, even before they have something to come to you about, it makes them a lot more likely to come and talk to you and ask for help. Additionally, I think when working with kids, you have to accept, acknowledge, and affirm them as an individual first before you affirm any individual action or thing that they're capable of. My mom loves me deeply. I'm an only child. She loves me to the moon and back. But when I was younger, there was such a focus on my grades that I thought that if I got bad grades, I was a bad person. That if I didn't do well at school, my mom wouldn't love me anymore. She was so focused on making sure that I had access to strong education opportunities because she loved me enough to know that I could take on the world if I wanted to, that it made me lose sight of that love and feel like it was a little conditional. And I think parents fall into that sometimes. So communicating with your child that the love that you have for them is unconditional and that you stand at their side regardless is something that can go a really long way.
Tony, I feel like I'm sitting on the front row of a church pew right now, listening to you, and this is fantastic. And this is kind of what people will find in your book. And is your book meant for children or adults or both?
So Weirdo is a middle grade graphic novel, which means as young as the 4th grade student can read it. However, I think there are things in Weirdo that apply throughout middle school that also apply through high school as well. And I've had grown adults and then messaged me and said, hey, I'm an adult and I needed this. I wish I had it when I was a kid. I'm so glad I have it now. Every person has to take their self-love journey at some point, and Weirdo is intended to be a positive tool to help move people along that path, no matter when they find it.
One of the things I think about cultural icons, right? And, I think a lot of kids grew up with a weirdo on television who was Steve Urkel. Right. But I'm wondering, how did that character impact you? Did you ever watch that show and think, wow, I can be weird and be on television too?
I'll be completely honest. It's not a great answer, but I did not know who Steve Urkel was until somebody called me Steve Urkel. I didn't know. Oh, really? I had no idea what was going on. I said, who is that? I have no idea who that is. And I looked it up and I said, oh, well, I did do that. So I get it. But I think that even beyond Steve Urkel, there are a lot of really positive, nerdy figures that are popping up in media today that are making it easier for kids to be themselves and embrace the things that make them nerdy. I think about Megan Thee Stallion and her unabashed love for anime, how much she loves anime and cartoons, and she's really open about that in her music and the way she dresses. Things like that certainly create space for kids that don't see people that look like them that are into those things.
Wow. And now you're on tour with this book. Tell us about how the tour is going, what cities you've been to. I mean, can people find you in the DMV? Tell us about the tour.
So since Weirdo published on September 17th of last year, I have visited over 40 schools around the country. Wow. So I've been in my hometown of Atlanta. I've been in the DMV. I've been in Washington, D.C., California, Wisconsin, Minnesota as well. I think in the DMV in particular, I'm really close friends with the folks at Phantom Comics in DuPont Circle. So I did a signing at DuPont Circle, and I'm always popping back up at Phantom. It's my goal to come back to the DMV soon. But the thing that's really important to me about going on tour and getting the book into kids' hands is that we have to model for kids that it is possible to heal and that it's possible to grow. And the book does a really great job of that. As a debut Black author, I know that Black authors receive less marketing. It's a little more difficult for our books to remain on shelves. So I'm going out into my community, engaging them directly, hoping that they resonate with the story. And to date, we've gotten some really positive feedback. We sold out of our first printing. We're almost through our second printing right now. We're named Best Books of 2024 by the New York Public Library, School Library Journal, Chicago Public Library as well. The book is having an impact, and that's something that I'm deeply grateful about.
And speaking of impact, I'm really excited for you. But speaking of impact, are there any testimonials or anything that you have, some stories you've heard where a kid or a parent has come and said, Mr. Weaver, your book made me feel whatever?
So I'll tell you this. Recently, I had the opportunity to visit a school that is in the same compound as a state prison. It is a school where young people that have been impacted by the carceral system go for their classes. And normally I don't get to visit schools like that because they tell me, oh, kids like that, we don't want to reward them for their bad behavior. And I'm like, no, they're kids. Kids need books, kids need stories. And I had the opportunity to visit some kids that were in that environment, and all of the positive things that they had to say about how they felt seen in the book. One student in particular said that reading Weirdo inspired him to write, that it made
Wow.
him understand that his voice mattered and that there were stories that he could tell. And to me, that is the crux of my work. That's why I do what I do. I think stories can change the world, but I am not arrogant enough to believe that my story is the one that's going to flip a light switch and change everything. But I think that as a community, if I tell a story about being myself and it makes it easier for someone else to be their self, they're going to go out and do something to make it easier for somebody else to be themselves. And ultimately, we reach a point where through the power of storytelling, we're able to move the world forward. And I'm grateful that I get to play even a tiny part in that.
Well, I have to say I have an addiction, and my addiction is buying books. And part of that is I love buying children's books. My kids are grown men now, but I have a whole library of children's books. So know that I will be purchasing Weirdo myself and reading it. And so for those who do want to get Weirdo, what's the best place to go to purchase a book?
So Weirdo is everywhere that books are sold. So you can find it at your local bookstore, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. In the DMV in particular, Phantom Comics, they have some signed copies by me that are there and available. But it's literally everywhere. If you go to a bookstore and they don't have Weirdo, we got to ask some questions. What's going on?
So we're going to check out the folks at Mahogany, which is our Black bookstore, Mahogany and Sankofa. We'll check them out to make sure that they have it on their bookshelves. That's the go-to place for us in the DMV. So we're going to help you out in making sure that they have it on their shelves. Because if folks see this, we want them to be able to go pick up a copy.
Definitely.
Yeah. So are you coming back to the DMV anytime soon?
So I am scheduled to be back in the DMV in the next 3 months. I don't have my calendar in front of me right now, so I don't know the exact date, but I am scheduled to be back in the DMV.
Well, make sure you reach out to us so we can let our viewers know, where they can come see you. And we know what your favorite place is, the comic bookstore, the comic.
Yes.
What is it? What was the name of it again?
Comics, yeah.
Phantom Comics. Yeah, make sure we get there. So when you're not on a book tour, what are you doing?
I'm writing. I think that in general, I am grateful that I have a desire to tell stories. Some people, the ideas come and go, but for me, my brain's always brimming with ideas. There's always something that I want to make, always something that I want to write. I'm also doing a lot of reading, hearing what other people are talking about. And otherwise, I'll be honest with you, I'm playing Pokemon cards. That's where I'm at. They're like, Tony's at home. He's out on tour. He's not working. What's he doing? I'm somewhere with some Pokemon cards in my hand, having a good time.
All right, I gotta learn that one too. I think what our producer Jaman was when you said Pokemon cards, he was like, "Yeah." So I've got a teacher right near me. So I really appreciate you taking this time with us today. I mean, I saw your story. I thought it was something we definitely needed to share with our readers. We're in a part of town in Washington, D.C., where people don't understand our community, and our kids are labeled all kinds of things, and so. Or labeled all kinds of ways, I'll put it that way. And so I think your message is really positive, and we might even try to find a way to get you here to talk to our kids in person. I really, really appreciate this time that you've given us today.
Well, I would love to come talk to your students, and I'm grateful for your time as well. Thank you so much for your support and everything that you do to keep people informed.
All righty. Tony Weaver, author of Weirdo, thank you for being with us. Take care.
Thank you.
All righty.